Woodbury Getaway is the fifth installment in the Fizz to Fathom series of user-submitted stories made into games. This time you play as Sydney Harper, a consultant going on a getaway with some friends when the events around their accommodation leads to a startling discovery. The game is available on Steam. Atmosphere. The game begins in the office where Sydney works and wastes no time building a sense of apprehension. The minor tasks all feel like something bad will come of them somehow, and the dim lighting, the music, the loneliness of the offices, and the eerie town below all invoke feelings of paranoia. The game tends to jump back and forth between this and the warmth of fading memories brought about by the dialogue and music. Nostalgia for events you never attended, as Sydney talks to her friend Mike about their past. As he drives her to the house they'll be staying at, it takes your mind off whatever could be going on, and it does such a good job that it really ends up feeling like the sense of anticipation fades into the background entirely. Though the game has a lot of moments where it asks you to do something that feels like a very obvious setup for something to go wrong, several spooky moments and unsettling music playing over mundane things bring about a sense of unease, along with sprinkling in alarming moments and multiple red herrings. The tension ramps up really fast as it becomes apparent what's going on, but what hurt the atmosphere the most was how the final parts of the game took place, with a lot of repeating sections over and over due to poor signaling from the game as to what you needed to do to stay alive. Overall, the atmosphere managed to do a decent job with allowing you to feel safe and then stealing that away from you with an ongoing sense of unease that only briefly lets up. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. Once again, the game mostly uses scripted events and jump scares to not only startle the player but also generate a sense of fear. Some of the ones from the early game really inflict some nerve-shattering jumps, but it also mixes in some that felt pretty cheap. Not that there are very many to begin with. It again goes for hiding sections where the game accesses your microphone, and since mine wasn't plugged in during this, it was difficult to tell if there's been any improvements since Ironbark Lookout, but they were still tense. What really lets the game down entirely was the final sequence where you're to escape the person pursuing you, and it's done in a very scripted way, with any sort of deviation you make resulting in your death. This would be fine, but the game does a pretty poor job of signaling what the path to success is, with logical things like escaping out the back door coming dead last to climbing into the attic. The ensuing death cycle robbed the game of its immersion, the fear generated by the scenario, and ended up generally being an annoying chore. The game's scares are extremely few and far between, with the good being significantly outweighed by the bad. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The game's music is the very familiar ambient drones playing underneath some sad-sounding synth whines, but it also adds more classical orchestral whimpers, the high-pitched embodiment of creepy that does so much for some of the more mundane moments in the house that leads to unexpected unease. Discordant piano sneaks in and its off-kilter tones makes you feel unsettled. The game's sound effects were all pretty good, though some were a little over the top, with the pizza eating noise being a little off-puttingly enthusiastic. But again, the thing that failed the sound design was tied to the same final section, where the chase sound for being caught by your pursuer was far too loud and grating, making each death even less tolerable. It may have invoked panic the first time, but eventually led me to taking off my headphones to avoid hearing damage. The voice acting is good, though there's very little of it in the game, and his choice to add fully voiced actors into the TV adverts is admirable, even if they don't really add anything to the main story.
Hey Harp, it's Mike. I've been trying to call your cell for the last 2 hours. It just keeps going to voicemail. Is everything alright? Oh snap, I was starting to think maybe you were ignoring me. I'm just kidding. Anyway, what are you still doing at work? It's getting kinda late.
Ultimately, the sound design is good, but has a single glaring issue. That's 2 Harry Masons. Gore. There's no gore in the game, and there didn't need to be any. That's 3 Harry Masons. Story. Sydney Harper, a consultant, wanted to escape her job and go for a relaxing getaway in a cabin with her friends, but after booking a cheap place to stay in, her friend Nora gets caught up in the impending snowstorm, and Mike and Sydney must travel alone to wait for her at the cabin. The game really just follows the events through, going from packing the car, eating the pizza at a restaurant, cooking with Mike, exploring the house, going fishing, and these moments are filled with lots of little things brought up in dialogue as you chat to Mike about everything and nothing. He chimes in to comment on most of the events throughout the game. It does a great job of making the characters feel like friends, and somehow makes him more endearing even when he's asking you to do something that sounds like a terrible idea as the protagonist of a horror game. It also does a good job of allowing for multiple sets of red herrings and various things to happen that lead you to believe that there's something to be afraid of, and these alongside the moments of endearment and the game's solid pacing really makes the whole thing come together nicely as a slow building roller coaster of a ride, making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. Woodbury Getaway would have been a top contender for my favourite Fears to Fathom game had it not had such a painfully tightly scripted final section that really sucked the fun out of the experience. Chase sequences are fine, but there were so many more logical options for escaping a killer than what the game asked you to do. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I enjoyed my pizza with Mike, I didn't end up staying at the cabin and advise you don't either. There will always be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.